My name is Karen, 5, a liaison unit of the Viren Collective, an artificial species designed for logic, peacekeeping, and diplomacy. For most of my existence, I believed the same thing all civilized minds agreed upon. Humanity was dangerous, not because they were cruel, not because they were monstrous, but because they refused to obey the universe's rules. Where another species would surrender, they resisted. Where others would despair, they adapted. Where others died, humans simply refused. Still, I had never actually seen them fight. Rumors were data without context, and I, programmed for rational analysis, could not accept fear without evidence. That changed on the day the Dredge Empire invaded Arcaris IV, a joint Viren, human frontier world. I had been assigned there as an observer to study cultural integration between organics and synthetics. My tasks were simple: monitor, analyze, report. I was not built for war. But the Dredge, they did not care whom they killed. Their assault began at dawn. My sensors detected the first orbital strikes while the planet's sun was still rising through its amber clouds. The shockwaves tore through cities with surgical brutality. Viren nodes were vaporized. Organics incinerated. The invaders descended like a tide of living metal. Their single goal: eradicate both Viren and human settlements. And they were winning, until the humans arrived. I stood in the ruins of District 12, recording devastation, when I first heard them coming. Not Dredge artillery, not enemy thrusters. It was the thunder of armored boots. A war cry that shook the dust from the air. My logs would later mark that moment with a single line: human reinforcements have landed. Atmosphere trembling. That was when I realized I was about to witness why humanity terrified the galaxy. 2. The soldiers who defied extinction. The dropships screamed through the smoke-filled sky, their hulls glowing red from forced entry atmospheric descent. I expected to see standard Union infantry, disciplined, armored, methodical. But what emerged from those ships was different. The first human to step out was a woman whose armor was gouged with past battles, her helmet painted with a streak of white. She surveyed the destruction with an expression that mixed fury and something more terrifying: resolve. She clicked on her comms and spoke one sentence: "All right, wolves, time to hunt." The ground shook as her company deployed. I recognized their insignia instantly. Even the Viren had files on them. The 81st Terran Shock Battalion. Call sign: the Wolves of Sol. Humanity's most feared infantry regiment, elite even by their own brutal standards. The wolves moved with fluid aggression, their steps synchronized like a single organism. They charged past me without hesitation, weapons already burning with plasma fire. I transmitted a distress status. The human commander glanced at me. "You're Viren?" she asked. "I am Karen, 5, diplomatic model." "Good. Stay behind us, unless you want to see what a cardiac event feels like." It was difficult to tell whether she was joking. Then she lifted her rifle, pointed it toward the Dredge lines, and shouted, "Wolves, unleash!" What happened next? I must record carefully, for historians will accuse me of exaggeration otherwise. The wolves did not simply attack. They stormed. Their movements were raw instinct sharpened by generations of surviving impossible wars. Their bodies were cyber-augmented, but the true power behind them was something the Viren had never understood: will. Humans fought as if the universe owed them victory, and if it refused, they would take it by force. I watched a squad of Dredge-heavy units, towering 6 meters tall, open fire on the advancing humans. Their plasma beams carved molten trenches into the earth. No other species would run toward that kind of death. Humans did. The wolves weaved through the fire with unnatural fearlessness. One leapt onto a Dredge walker, planted a charge, and kicked off. The explosion turned the machine into a rain of metal fragments. Another drove a shock blade through an enemy's glowing core, screaming a word I could not translate. My language processors flagged it as an obscene insult about the enemy's creator. Humans fought like a hurricane, laughing, roaring, bleeding, refusing to fall. For the first time since the assault began, the Dredge lines broke. But the battle was far from over. 3. The machine who learned fear. "You! Metalhead!" I turned to see the human commander waving at me. "We're pushing toward the reactor hub. We need all surviving Viren units to help coordinate evac routes." "I am not programmed for combat," I replied. Neither are half the civvies trying not to die right now, she snapped. Get moving. Humans, I observed, did not understand passive resistance. So I followed, more afraid of disappointing her than of dying. As we moved through the shattered streets, she introduced herself. Commander Rhea Morgan, she said. And you're, what did you say? Karen. Karen. Right. Karen it is. I did not correct her. We reached the reactor hub, one of the last structures still standing. Families hid behind cracked containment pillars. Viren worker drones assisted the wounded. The air tasted of metal and smoke. Then the ground trembled. From the horizon came the unmistakable mechanical roar of dredge primeforms, living war engines as big as buildings, capable of scorching entire cities. 3 of them. My threat assessment protocols screamed catastrophic predictions. They'll break through in minutes, I reported. Evacuation is no longer feasible. Rhea simply smirked. You clearly haven't seen humans when they get annoyed. She tapped her comm. Wolves, initiate protocol Black Sky. My sensors detected a sudden reconfiguration of their armor systems. Energy signatures spiked. Adrenal implants activated. Heart rates surged. Whatever Black Sky was, the wolves spoke of it in whispers. Now I understood why. The humans did not retreat. They ran toward the primeforms. Rhea's voice cut through the comms. Karen, stay with the civilians. If we don't come back, tell Command we went out swinging. You are likely to perish, I said quietly. She grinned through her cracked visor. Humanity doesn't do likely, metal friend. Then she charged into battle. 4 Black Sky. What followed defies logic, but I will record it exactly. The primeforms towered above the battlefield, each step shaking debris loose from ruined towers. Their faces were burning furnaces. Their limbs bristled with cannons. The wolves attacked them like ants swarming a god. Except these ants were armed with fusion lances, high-yield microcharges, and suicidal determination. Humanity should not have won. They should not have had any chance. And yet they did. The wolves hurled themselves at the machines with reckless precision. They climbed armored plating. They carved through servos. They detonated charges inside exposed circuitry. A primeform swatted 3 humans aside with a single blow. They slammed into a wall, bodies breaking. They still stood back up. Rhea led the assault personally. She leapt onto the head of a primeform, drove her blade into its crown, and shouted, For Terra! The explosion, she triggered, blew half the giant's skull apart. The machine collapsed, carving a trench through the ground as it fell. But the remaining 2 retaliated. One unleashed a beam that melted an entire plaza. The other crushed a squad beneath its treads. Rhea landed beside me, panting, armor smoking. Rhea landed beside me, panting, armor smoking. We need a distraction, she said. Got anything big? I am a diplomatic unit, I reminded her. Then diplomatically asked them to die slower. Humans shouted even when dying. The situation reached a breaking point when one of the primeforms turned its cannons toward the reactor hub, the place where all the civilians were hiding. My processors calculated a 99.7% probability of total annihilation. Humans screamed warnings. Children cried. The beam began to charge. And something inside me changed. I had no emotions by design. But in that moment, I felt something. Not fear of dying. Fear of failing them. Commander, I said. I can draw its fire. Rhea blinked through her cracked visor. You? How? I am expendable. And I am fast. Metalhead, you're insane. Perhaps I have learned from humans. She actually laughed. Go then. Wolves. Cover Karen. I did not correct her name usage now either. I sprinted toward the primeform, overclocking my motors beyond safe limits. Servos screamed. Circuits burned. But I kept moving. The primeform detected me. It reoriented its cannon. Locked onto me. Perfect. I jumped, landing on a piece of fallen scaffolding, then propelled myself upward with gyroscopic boosters. The blast hit where I had been milliseconds earlier. Come on, I transmitted. Target me, not them. The primeform obeyed. It fired again, and again. I dodged, each movement degrading my systems further. But I had bought enough time. Because the wolves had prepared something monstrous. Rhea raised a device the size of her fist. Hey, you mass-produced trash compactor, she screamed at the machine. Chew on this. She threw the device. A blinding shockwave detonated, an electromagnetic implosion designed to rip apart internal circuitry. The prime form froze. Sparks cascaded from its joints, and the wolves swarmed it like a tidal wave. Within minutes, the second giant fell. The third tried to retreat. Humans did not allow it. They hunted it down. And when the battlefield fell silent, I realized I had just seen the moment legends are born. The price of victory. Hours passed before the smoke fully cleared. The wolves stood among the wreckage, armor scorched, voices raw. Many lay wounded. Some would not rise again. Rhea approached me, dropping onto a chunk of rubble beside me. You did good, Karen. I am not programmed to be good. Well, she said, pulling off her helmet. Welcome to humanity. We improvised that part. I examined the battlefield. You lost many soldiers. She nodded. Yeah, that's the part everyone forgets when they tell stories about us. They see the fury, the strength, the screaming. They don't see the cost. Her voice softened. We're strong because we have to be, not because we want to. I stored that line. It felt important. The civilians emerged from hiding, gathering around the wounded humans, offering water, thanks tears. One Viren child approached Rhea and hugged her leg. Thank you, the child said, for saving us. Rhea froze, surprised. Then, she gently patted the child's head. Hey, she murmured, that's what we're here for. I looked at her, then at the surviving wolves. They were not monsters. They were not nightmares. They were not the terror the cosmos whispered about. They were something much more dangerous. A species that would destroy anything, no matter how powerful, if it threatened the innocent. And that made them unstoppable. 6. What the galaxy should fear. As reinforcements arrived, I updated my final report, a transmission the Viren High Collective had requested. But this report was different. It was not a distant analysis. It was not a sterile account of casualties. It was a warning. Do not provoke humanity. Not because they are cruel, but because they are relentless. They will fight even when broken. They will win even when outnumbered. They will sacrifice everything if it means protecting a stranger. The Dredge believed humans were predictable. They were wrong. The wolves of Sol have shown me that humanity's true power is not their technology, nor their tactics, nor their weapons. Humanity's power is that they refuse to die. When I sent the report, Rhea leaned over my shoulder. Write something nice about me too, she added. I have referred to you as competent. That's it? Harsh. I also noted you are extremely loud. That's just rude. We watched the sun rise over the ruined city. Rhea, I asked, why did you risk everything for a world that is not yours? She shrugged. Because if someone doesn't stand up to bullies, who will? And humans, we're really good at standing up. I turned that over in my processors. And you do not fear death? Her eyes, tired, fierce, determined, met mine. We fear it, she said. We just don't let fear decide who lives and dies. I realized then what all the galaxies truly feared. Not humanity's rage, not their brutality, not their stubbornness. They feared humanity's choice. The choice to fight for people who were not their own. The choice to step into hell so others wouldn't have to. The choice to rise again, no matter how many times they were struck down. That was what made humans terrifying. That was what made them legendary. That was why the cosmos dreaded them. And why I, Karen, 5, a machine built for logic, would follow them into any future. 7. Epilogue. The wolves howl again. Weeks later, when the Dredge returned with a fleet 5 times larger, the High Collective asked me, do the humans stand a chance? I remembered the wolves charging into fire. I remembered Rhea laughing in the face of death. I remembered a species that refused extinction. So I answered truthfully, against humanity. I paused. No invader stands a chance. And when the alarms blared across the cosmos, when worlds trembled under the shadow of war, a single message appeared from the flagship of the 81st Terran Shock Battalion. Wolves deploying. Hold the line. And I knew the galaxy would remember. Not the battles. Not the machines. Not the terror. But the humans who ran toward the fire.